They thought they had the power, but in a single moment, the balance shifted and they never saw it coming. Kendra Hayes had spent her entire career fighting for justice in a system designed to hold her back. Today, she was stepping into the role of chief of police in Cedarview, a town with a troubled history of bias within its force. But before she even set foot in her office, an unexpected traffic stop was about to set the tone for everything that lay ahead. They thought they were in control. Two officers pulling over a lone driver, ready to throw their weight around. But what they didn't know was that the woman behind the wheel wasn't just any driver. She was their new boss, the chief of police. And this stop was about to change everything. Kendra Hayes had always been a woman of quiet strength, a woman who knew what it meant to rise above. After years of hard work, today marked the beginning of a new chapter. Her first day as the chief of police in the bustling town of Cedarview. It was an achievement she had fought for, overcoming countless barriers, including a justice system that seemed to be built on keeping her and others like her down. She drove down the winding highway leading into the city, the early morning sun casting a warm glow over the horizon. Her hands gripped the steering wheel just a bit tighter than usual. This was supposed to be a day of celebration, but Kendra couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at her. Cedarview wasn't just any town. It had a reputation, known for its deeply conservative culture. Its police department had long been marred by reports of bias, particularly against minorities. Kendra had read the reports, heard the stories. Many officers had voiced their displeasure at her appointment, a black woman taking the helm of their department. But Kendra wasn't one to back down. As she approached a traffic light that was just about to turn red, a flash of blue and red lights illuminated her rearview mirror. A patrol car pulled up behind her, sirens blaring. Instinctively, Kendra's heart rate quickened. She knew this was no coincidence. She pulled over to the side of the road, the grass on the shoulder crunching beneath her tires. Two officers, both white, stepped out of the vehicle. The senior officer, a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, approached her car with a deliberate, measured stride. The younger officer followed closely behind, his face tight with suspicion. Kendra lowered her window, her pulse steady but alert. The senior officer leaned in slightly, his eyes scanning her car before resting on her. "License and registration," he said flatly, his voice carrying an air of authority that felt just a bit too practiced. Kendra reached into her glove compartment, pulling out the documents without a word. She had learned long ago that in situations like this, silence was often the best strategy. As she handed them over, the senior officer's eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing. The younger officer, however, wasn't as restrained. "What brings you out here?" he asked, his tone edged with suspicion. "This area is not exactly safe, if you know what I mean." Kendra's stomach churned, but she remained composed. "I'm on my way to work." "And where exactly would that be?" The younger officer pressed, leaning in a little closer. His smirk suggested he already had assumptions about her. Kendra hesitated for a moment. She could reveal her position right then and there, put an end to the charade, but something told her to hold back. She had been in this situation before, too many times, in fact. The power dynamic here was undeniable, and she didn't want to start her first day by creating tension with the very officers she would soon lead. "You'll find out soon enough," she responded calmly, locking eyes with the young officer. There was no anger in her voice, but she made it clear that she wasn't intimidated. The senior officer, sensing that things were about to escalate, stepped in. "Let's not make this difficult, ma'am. We can take this further if need be." There it was, the veiled threat, the subtle flex of authority. Kendra felt her patience thinning. She had endured this kind of treatment for years: disrespect, condescension, assumptions based on nothing but the color of her skin. She had fought too hard, climbed too high to let this slide. Kendra took a deep breath, deciding she had played along long enough. "That won't be necessary," she said firmly. "I'm Chief Kendra Hayes. I suggest you rethink how you're handling this situation." The shift in the air was palpable. Both officers froze, The senior officer blinked in confusion, his brows furrowing as the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. The younger officer's smug expression vanished, replaced with shock and a hint of panic. "You're the chief?" The senior officer stammered, clearly caught off guard. "Yes," Kendra said, her voice unwavering. "And I'd like to know why exactly I was stopped and why this line of questioning is even happening." For a moment, neither officer spoke. The younger one fumbled with his words, trying to come up with an excuse, but the damage was already done. The power dynamic had shifted, and they knew it. The senior officer cleared his throat, struggling to regain his composure. There must have been a misunderstanding. Kendra didn't let him finish. "No, this isn't a misunderstanding," she interrupted, her tone sharp. "This is exactly the problem. You stop people like me without cause, make assumptions, and try to flex your authority because you think you can get away with it." Kendra's voice was steady, unwavering. The senior officer opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. He knew she was right. Kendra's calm, unflinching demeanor only made their behavior look worse. "You see," she continued, her eyes locked on theirs, "it's officers like you who make people distrust the system. And it's people like me who are here to change that." Both officers stood in silence, their faces drained of color. Kendra could feel the weight of the moment sinking in. This wasn't just about her. This was about every person who had been unjustly stopped, questioned, and harassed, because they didn't fit someone's narrow idea of who belonged in certain spaces. She stepped out of the car, standing tall as she addressed them. "You'll be reporting to me personally for the next few weeks. I'll be reviewing every traffic stop you make, and I suggest you think long and hard about how you handle yourselves from now on." The senior officer finally found his voice. We didn't mean any disrespect, Chief. It won't happen again." Kendra nodded, though she knew his words were empty. It would happen again, not with these two, perhaps, but with others. That was why she was here to root out the deep-seated prejudice that had plagued Cedar View's police force for too long. "Good," she said quietly before turning back to her car. As she drove away, Kendra allowed herself a moment to breathe. She had won this round, but there would be many more battles ahead. Her position as chief of police was more than just a title. It was a responsibility, to make sure that no one else had to endure what she had just experienced. Later that day, Kendra gathered the department for her first meeting. The tension in the room was thick as she stood in front of the officers, her presence commanding the attention of everyone present. She recounted the events of that morning, leaving no detail unspoken. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," she began, her voice steady. "But I am here to make it clear that this kind of behavior stops now. Every officer in this department will be held accountable for how they treat the citizens of Cedar View, regardless of their race, gender, or background." A murmur of unease swept through the room, but Kendra didn't flinch. She had spent her life fighting for justice, and she wasn't about to stop now. "This is your chance to prove that you are the kind of officers who serve with integrity," she continued. "But know this, I will not tolerate bias. I will not tolerate disrespect, and I will not tolerate anyone who thinks they are above the law." Her words echoed in the silent room. Some officers shifted uncomfortably while others nodded in quiet agreement. Kendra could tell who was ready to stand with her and who wasn't, but that didn't matter. She was ready for the challenge. As Kendra drove away, she exhaled, the weight of the encounter settling on her shoulders. This was just the beginning. The resistance, the scrutiny, and the deeply ingrained biases within Cedar View's police force wouldn't disappear overnight. But that didn't matter. She hadn't come here to maintain the status quo, she had come to dismantle it, to rebuild trust, to hold those in power accountable. Tomorrow there would be more challenges, more battles to fight, more officers who would test her resolve. But Kendra had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. She wasn't just another name in the system. She was the change it had been waiting for, and she wasn't going anywhere.